I am your host, Carrie Scollon, giving us different perspectives on where we are and where we want to go on our journey. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to spending some time with you. Hi, everyone. This is Carrie. I am the host of the FoundHer Series podcast, and I have a lovely guest on today named Elaine de Rooy, and we are going to be talking about our new book that came out. Elaine, thank you so much for being here. We're going to talk about your chapter in Beautiful Chaos, Embracing the Unexpected. This book was released on February 1st, right? Yeah. And this is a series of me interviewing all the authors of the book. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, perfect. If you want to let everyone know maybe where you're coming in from and what kind of brought you here and made you decide to be a part of this book collaboration that we've had amazing women join us in.
Yes. Well, I live in Qualicum Beach, BC. I have lived there for 30 plus years. I found Carrie because Carrie found me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She hired me for a belly dance event at one of her lovely retreats in Port Alberni. And I didn't know who she was. So I thought I would just do a little bit of investigation on my future client. So I started checking out her podcast, and I realized that there was a book project that she was also involved in. So I have always been an aspiring writer. I've done a bit of writing here and there, but nothing too serious. And it kept coming up on my radar of things that I hadn't achieved yet. So I thought maybe I should just get in touch with her and see, because it was quite late after I saw the podcast from where the book idea was getting put together. So I thought, oh, there's probably not a spot for me, but I thought, well, half of me wanted to have her say yes, half of her wanted me to say no, because I was a little afraid of the whole scenario. Yeah. So I contacted you, and then she said yes, and then I panicked. And I thought, oh my gosh! And so
what have I done?
Yeah, what have I done? What have I done? And yeah, for the next 48 hours, I think it was, I had this little battle going on in my head about, putting myself out there, risking it all, being afraid. Yeah. The usual stuff that a lot of people, I guess, go through on the first go around. But when you're having it happen to yourself, it feels like it's the first time it's happened. But anyhow,
absolutely.
So in the end, I think Carrie walked me off the ledge. I was getting ready to bolt, and she says, "No, you can do it." And I went, okay, I'm going to trust her.
Okay. And are you, how do you feel now that it's out?
It was, to be honest, the whole process was way less scarier than I ever imagined it. Good. Way less, like probably 10% of what I had built up in my head. Even the fact of making yourself vulnerable by writing the story. Yeah. Once I had done it, I didn't feel as vulnerable as I thought it would even be. Mm-hmm. I was a bit nervous, because I was going to be judged, and that was one of my biggest fears, was being judged by people that didn't even know me. But then I thought, well, when I hit that send button on the second edit, I went, it's out of your hands now, girl.
That's it.
Gotta just let it go.
Yes. But I'm so glad you had that response after, because sometimes, like you said, I think so many authors would really resonate with that beforehand, like, oh my gosh, okay, now there is a spot for me. Now I've really got to do it. Yeah. And the writing process, which you had experience in, because you do blogs, so you had some writing experience, which was great for you. That may have taken some of the pressure off for somebody like me.
Really.
What? No, okay, because I had no writing experience, so I was I was super nervous about how to write it. But when it was all said and done, it was, to me, it was just a beautiful process. It seemed to go quite flawlessly. And it was for me, it's a real feeling of we're all in this together. We're all carrying the load of putting this book out into the world, which wasn't even a load. But when you're not doing it alone.
It's and quite a few of us were like novices, brand new to the whole procedure. We had a couple people, I guess, that had done the first volume. Yes. But most of us were all in the same boat, which was,
Was
We
great.
all got to paddle at the same time.
That's right.
Paddle like crazy.
That's so true. I loved it. I mean, I did it the one before, and when you've got not a whole new group of women, but there was two that had done it before, and that was really nice, actually.
Yeah.
Just to have them kind of,
Well, they were like a
been
mentor.
through it. Yeah.
They were course and kept our stress level down somewhat, because they said it's not that bad, ladies.
Yeah. You're going to be okay.
You'll be okay.
Yes.
I survived.
We all survived.
We all survived. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to dive into your story a little bit. And because I mean, your story, sadly, I don't know if that's the right word, but a lot of people have gone through this or will go through this.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So your chapter is called Life After a Death. So everybody knows what they're reading as soon as they open your chapter, which but when I went back through your chapter, there was just so many things that I pulled out that I feel are such important messages. And I would love to know, in your words first, what it was that you really wanted the message to get across from your chapter. And I know that everyone's going to take something different. So I don't expect it to be one message, but when you were writing it, we were told by the editor, like, we're writing this for the reader.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so did you have the reader in mind when you were going through?
How
did that work for you?
Somewhat. And I would have to say that probably, I mean, there's so many little messages that you find in your story, but I'd have to say that the big one is that you can plan. Like my training is in accounting, right? So we plan, we schedule, we organize. It's built into our DNA almost from the minute we're let out of the school, and our job just dictates that. So that's the way I went on in my life, is I planned to the max. I was a big, huge planner, and when something like what happened to us happened, planning just disappeared over in a heartbeat, right? And that's truly a heartbeat. So at first I didn't know how to respond, because I thought, I can't, there's no way to plan for this. But then I used my skills as I needed to plan our life so that we could try to maintain a healthy and upbeat life for the kids, because they were quite young at the time, but also to give him the support he needed, because he had never been sick.
Okay. So
his brain was like, so I used my accounting and planning skills, and we planned his medical journey. Like, I had everything. Yeah. I look back and think,
in your book, you say like you had Excel spreadsheets, like you were, okay. So I want to go back to a little bit more of the beginning. I mean, we're not going to give it everything away, of course, because we want people to read your chapter, and even whatever we talk about, they're going to get more of it when they read your chapter anyways. I think it will resonate with a lot of people. So you talked about the initial, he had a cardiac arrest. And I think one of the things when I was reading, it was like the plans changed. What he was supposed to be doing, he didn't do. And thankfully, because that put him in a place where he could get the help. You heard the ambulance. You knew he was in it.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
no.
I'm sorry. I thought that you said when you heard the ambulance or you heard the sirens.
But I connected the dots later.
Yes. Oh, okay. Okay.
Because where we heard the ambulance in our town, it had to be his ambulance because of the time.
Okay. So I see you connected that. Okay. Sorry about that. And so at the time you had two boys, and they were, how old were they when he first?
I think they were 8. Oh.
Yeah, they were pretty little, because they were little.
They were
like 13 and 16 when he passed away.
Yeah, so, right? 8 and 10 or something like that.
Okay, so he had that initial, and then you obviously went through that process. And you said, was it about 5 years from the time that he had that? Okay, and there was a part in there, which I think is an important piece for people, was that you had a sister who was a nurse, or you have a couple sisters who were nurses. But one of them came in with you on, was it the initial doctor's appointment? And so you could kind of...
It was in the emergency room where he was the first day.
I just think if people have that available to them, because I can't picture what that would be like, trying to take in all this information in a world that we're just not familiar with.
Well, and it's not like it was not something I could plan for. So I couldn't educate myself as to what they were telling me. Like I'd never, and it's just not something that you expect to happen that young. You expect your parents to maybe have that, but not your spouse. Right.
So, so you would have been 44 when that happened. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was time when he died. Yeah.
Yeah. When you, when I was going through it, like I said, and because this book is not a book that you pick up and read all in one day.
No.
It's like you sit with the chapters, you take, you put yourself in some of the situations of how you would react, or this will help me. Mm-hmm. Maybe one day I'm going to stick it back here so I remember. Yeah. But the way you wrote it, because it is such a hard subject, losing a spouse or a loved one, you added some humor into it, which I found was very helpful reading it. I love the one, probably because I related to it so much, when you talked about when you had first met, and you saw him eating the Kraft dinner with ketchup on it, and that might bode well for you, because maybe you're less than stellar cooking. I'm like, oh, okay, here she is. Yep, that's my girl right there, because I would have felt exactly the same way. And I used to put ketchup on my Kraft dinner, so I was like, instantly, I'm like, yeah. But I love that.
It resonated with one person for sure, right? People that eat Kraft dinner with ketchup.
Yeah. And I love how you did it, because it lightened it up for a minute, but you also showed part of his personality and how you both were. So it gave us a little glimpse into your relationship. And I love that, because it's, even though it's a true story, we still get connected to the characters. Mm-hmm. And I think that allowed us to just see a little piece. So I love that about your writing.
Thank you.
And so that was, and then there was another piece that later on you talked about in your chapter, and that was how you still remember him, you and the boys, and I'm sure that his name comes up a lot, and there's funny little things that you do, and it was around the anniversary of his passing that you do the little creamers, the creamers, and I mean, those are just, it's a feel good part. It's a memory, and I just think it's incredible. So I would love for you to kind of walk us through. So we know it happened. It was a 5-year process. Yeah. You touched a little bit on, it was almost like you were mourning his loss before it happened.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Definitely. Yeah.
And that
when you
got
have
that prolonged.
When you have somebody that is ill and they're not stable, right? They're going down the ladder, as I think I mentioned the ladder in the book. Mm-hmm. You see what you fell in love with, right? What you've lived with all these years. Mm-hmm. You see that slowly disappearing. Mm-hmm. So in that last year, he disappeared from what we remembered of him, but there was still a person there. Yeah. It just wasn't the person that I knew, or my children. My children, it was like having a grandparent instead of a parent in the house. They treated him more like a granddad because he just was withering away and emotionally isolating himself, right? Mm-hmm. Not interacting, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, it was a slow grief, because he was slowly disappearing, the person we knew. Mm-hmm. And so by the time he actually passed away, we had spent so much time grieving him that my kids' grieving period was super short. Mine probably went a lot longer than theirs. Yeah. Theirs was super short because they had already lost him the year before. Mm-hmm. They still grieved him, but he was in the hospital so much as well. So he wasn't even physically here for that last year a lot.
Oh, okay.
Especially I can't remember when he went into the hospital for the last time. It was a long stretch. I think it was at least 3 months before he passed. So I think he went in September and he passed away in like November.
Okay. So, and that was in Vancouver?
Yeah.
So that was, you're an island away from that. So your ferries or boat planes.
Oh gosh. Okay. So he made a lot of money off us.
Yeah. I bet they did.
Yeah.
So during that process, that's another piece of your story is because you're watching this, but you're grieving, but you have 2 children that you're helping through this process, which you don't even know how to help at this point because you're going through it too.
Yeah. So, in the end, they helped me come out of the grieving process because they were ready to move on with their lives because they were teenagers, right? Yeah. And they pulled me with them. They pulled me out. Yes. Really. Yeah. Out of the rabbit hole. Right. Yeah. So
so on that part of it, then you talked a little bit about also you can't prepare yourself, of course.
No, I had a whole year. I had a whole year knowing that what the outcome was, and it's still.
Yes, because the part that hit me, which I can just so see how that could happen, is you don't want to have those hard conversations because it turned, what did you say, from hopeful to practical, and you didn't want to take that bit of hope out of the conversation. So, I mean, I just, it was so. You just wrote it so well
thank you.
to help kind of go like, that was the little bit of a balance that you were trying, like you wanted to know, but you didn't want to ask because it just
exactly
put a different spin on it.
Yeah.
When you had to go down that road. But you ended up you did not ask him those tough questions that you were faced with at the end.
No, I got the answers from the social worker afterwards.
Yes. So a great lesson in here or a message for people to take away, which I've talked about before in a couple of the other conversations I've had, is having these conversations while we're both healthy.
Oh, yes.
Well, there's no emotional attachment.
That was probably the second thing on my agenda when after he passed away, was first to get his estate in order, and second was to get my estate in order. Yes. And I've openly shared all the details with my kids and said, here is where it is.
Yes. And
just
peace of mind.
Open the binder.
Yes. Peace of mind for you and your kids.
Yeah. Because I realized how hard it is for the people that are left behind to figure out what you want. Right.
So you obviously you went through this very young. I mean, 49, very young.
Yeah.
And with young kids.
Yeah.
And then you are in the grieving process.
Yeah.
And then you came out to a point where life does have to go on, especially when you've got kids.
Yes.
Like it makes it a little more like we can drown in that for a while longer, but when you have kids now, it's all of a sudden, every day still happens.
Yeah.
And you've got to be there. So they helped you through that process.
Yes. And I can actually elaborate on a very funny story about that process.
Okay.
It was probably 3 or 4 months after he passed on. And that's pretty short, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They came in and had a talk with Mom. And they said, Mom, you have to start dating again. They told me I had to start dating again. And I said, I don't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. Your dad was my first serious boyfriend. Yeah. And we got married.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was not in the dating arena for very long. And that was how many years ago?
Yeah.
Right?
Because you were married 27 years?
Yeah. Yeah. And we dated 5 or 6 years before that. So we're talking 30 plus years of not being anywhere near a dating situation.
Right.
So my kids said, well, let's help you. We're going to help you, Mom. So this took place in my bedroom.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so they said, well, we want to have a say in who you date.
Oh, okay.
I said, okay, let me get my iPad. So I got my little note thing on my iPad. I said, okay, tell me what traits I should look for in a man. So they gave me a list.
They did.
Things like liking kids, liking cats, which of course we have cats.
Yeah.
My son was worried about his career because there were some risky careers that he didn't want me to date men that were in that career. They wanted something that had longevity, right? It was it was a list of about 8 or 9 things.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I said, hang on, don't I have a say in this?
Yeah.
So I added to the list. And I think I do elaborate on that in the book, in that I made up a list and I had 3 things that I just pretty well was sure that I would not have to have, the man could not have. And that was the man that I'm with now has all 3 of those, which totally hilarious. And he had a list when we compared lists, and I failed all his too. So we thought that was like, okay, so what are these dating apps going to do? Would have done for us? They would never put us together.
Yeah, no kidding. Well,
yeah. So
I love that the boys were involved.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
spearheaded it. It's like, okay.
They didn't want you to be alone.
They didn't. They didn't.
You were too young to be. For the rest of your life too. Yeah. Wow.
So my oldest said, I'm 16, I'm going away to university and wherever because he wanted to become a pilot. He says, I could be stationed in Japan or South America. He says, I'm not coming home.
Yeah.
Very often. Right. So he says, I need to know you've got somebody to take care of you.
Oh my God. How sweet is that? Like really, that's a
chip off the old block. They were planning just as much as I used to.
Yeah. And who knows what you believe in, but your husband may have had a little bit of a part in that as well.
He definitely is in their genes somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
So when somebody asks me if I miss their dad, I go, why? I have 2 half versions of him right there.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's strange when they do things and I kind of go, wow, that was totally their dad.
Very much like their dad. Oh man.
Yeah.
You also did you start a group for widows, or was that just recommended to you to join one, or
because I was of course grieving more than my children, I decided to go to see a counselor.
Yes. Okay.
And the counselor told me that there are support groups for widows around, but they're all strangers to you and you might not be able to share as well. Right. So they said, what you probably have in your sphere is people that are already widows that you already know.
Oh.
So they said, make up your own group. That way you don't have to meet. You can just pick and choose each one for whatever the question you have that they might be able to answer for you, right?
Yes.
They're going to be, I have a friend who was a very young widow. She was only in her 20s when she became a widow. But I also have others that are friends of my kids who were widows and remarried and that. So they're all in different circumstances. So So I gathered my group. I sat down and actually wrote it out because I'm a planner, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I came up with a question, I go, okay, who on this list is going to be able to most likely answer it?
Yes.
The ones I stayed away from were male widows that remarried because I really didn't want the wives to think I was trying to shop for a husband.
And you talked about that in the book. Yes.
Yeah. Because I was picking single widows if I could.
Yeah.
Or lady widows.
Yeah.
And my guy happened to be a single male widow that hadn't remarried.
Right.
So
he was safe.
So he was extremely safe, and I shared way too much with him in the beginning, not knowing where our future lied.
Right.
Because he was on the do not fly list, right? I figured that one out right away. I thought, no, he doesn't get those first three criteria. So he's a friend. He's a friend for life, but that's fine. A widow friend. But then, Destiny had different plans for us. But in the beginning, and we had some serious conversations, but we also had some hilarious conversations about, my husband used to take our kids Boxing Day shopping with all their cash they got from Christmas.
Right.
And they would leave here at like 5:00 in the flipping morning and go Christmas shopping on Boxing Day. And when he passed away, I thought, oh God, no, I have to do that. Oh. So I was lamenting this to the friend. And he says, let me know how it goes when I'll look at your text when I get up at 7. So I went on this crazy shopping spree. I was buying coffee, trying to stay awake for those.
And you did it though.
I did it. I did it. But
your boys obviously wanted to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Well, you also touch on, or the message that I got from that piece was, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to gather those people that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that can help you in those times.
But that one was me.
That one that one was all.
I don't know if I did it every year. I think I was grateful when my son got his driver's license, because then he could go by himself.
Yeah, that's perfect. But I think it's neat. I mean, and when we're talking about the summit, I have Heather that's coming, and she talks about those traditions. She's talking about those things that do become a legacy, and maybe they will be passed down, and who knows where that'll go. But I love that you honored that, and your boys wanted it, and you just kept it going. There was, I mean, I think the hard part about these books and women coming in is we're so much more than a chapter, and we're trying to fit so much in this one chapter. So I'm sure you've got a book in you, because you've got way more that you can share, and different veins that you can go down. So we will, so this, obviously this happens, you've gone through it. I know that you found a passion and made a small business out of it with your belly dancing. And like you said at the beginning, I hired you to come to our retreat, and you were an absolute hit. The ladies completely loved that evening. We had a
crazy, wild, and lovely experience with you.
That was crazy, wild, and wonderful. And,
I have your retreat date on my counter. I'm going, I should really go, but I'm not normally here at that time of year.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, let me know, because let me know.
And I know they sell out too, right?
Yes.
So I thought, I got to decide that soon.
Yeah. Decide soon if you want to. They've sold out every time. So, but I do have spots,
but the belly dancing came into my life in the middle of his illness.
Oh, okay. So a little bit before.
So it happened in the middle of his illness, and it was because a girlfriend made me come to a class and wouldn't let me leave for 4 classes. I had to go 4 classes, and then she was going to let me bail if I wanted to.
Right.
And at the end of 4 classes, I realized that it was a night out for just me, which I hadn't had in a long time. And I knew I wasn't going to get very much. And it was an hour where I didn't have to talk to anybody, which is, when you've got a husband who's ill, you do a lot of talking, right? And it was a way to express my emotions, which I'd had to severely keep down, because with sadness comes, if you deplete, or if you punch down the sadness, you're also punching down all your other emotions. So with happiness. So that was my movement. 1 hour release a week was I could go there and dance. And then I made a practice space in my outbuilding on the property here.
Amazing.
And I would come, if I had any time during the week where I needed to really get out there alone, I would just go out and just crank the music up super, super loud and just dance.
I love that you say this, because when I first heard and read and knew your story, it felt like you got out to do the belly dancing. Your friend got you out, like, we got to get you out of the house. And it was almost like a bit of an escape. But what it actually looks to me now is that you had so much emotions trapped in your body, because you're just push. This actually allowed you to move some of that. Some of those emotions to our body, which we all talk about with trauma, is it gets trapped in there. We don't have any way of getting it out. So that would have been a incredible avenue for you to deal with some of those emotions in the time that you were going through them.
Oh yeah.
Wow. And then it just continued on from there.
Yeah. And I started off by becoming a teacher, because the program we were going to shut down, and all the other students had no place to dance, and I had practice space for myself. So they told me I had to clear out the entire building and make room for them.
Okay.
So then they said, oh, by the way, you're teaching. And I went, what? So that's basically how it started. And I was going to teach just beginners, but as you teach long enough, you had an intermediate, and then you had advanced, and then I had a troupe, or I have a troupe. So it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and it didn't just become a release for me. It became a new social circle of sorts, a sisterhood of sorts. And they kept me on a totally different path. They put me on a totally different path. Because I didn't know when I became a widow I would feel that that space in my heart with.
Right.
Where the wife was gone now. She was wiped off the face of the earth. Yeah. And so I had a space, and I had no idea what I was going to fill it with. I thought, so belly dancing kind of just grew into that space. There's a little tiny seed there, and it just grew into a whole space. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels so organic's not the right word, but it was something. Yeah. This happened to get you to do this, to get like we say, we can look back and connect the dots.
But. On the 10-year anniversary of my husband's death, I went down to the beach and I sat there and I went, holy crap, look what I'm doing. And I thought, 10 years ago, if you had sat me down and said, what are you going to do? I would have just had this blank stare, like take care of my kids, go back to work. You know, it would have been nothing. It would have been,
And so many times as a mom and as a woman, you're not thinking about you.
No,
at that point.
Yeah, no. So it wasn't until I retired 3 years after he passed away that I started actually thinking about my future and what if I wasn't working, what was I going to do? Because
what does that look like?
I found out that I was able to step back from my accounting role and focus more on my belly dance side. Yeah. So,
and that's another important piece of your story is your identity gets kind of ripped out from underneath you, and it's like, who am I now?
Yeah, like
I'm not the same person.
Yeah, it was like I say, I knew I had a whole year to prepare, but I really, I in my mind I was saying, I don't think he's going to make it, and then when it actually happened, it was like, I have no idea what to do first. I have no idea where to go from here. Yeah. And that just, And using that word widow, as I mentioned, even to this day. If it comes up, it's like,
not a word you want to be associated with.
Well, no, because, you meet people for years later that might not have heard.
Yeah.
They knew he was probably ill. But they didn't maybe hear the outcome. Yeah. And you have to break the news to them. So you watch them from saying, oh, hi, Elaine, how are things going, to going, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, right? And you think, I don't want to ruin somebody's day.
Right.
So, there were times, I can remember even in the beginning, where I would see somebody that I was pretty sure I hadn't seen at the celebration of life. So they didn't know. Yeah. Or it was very soon afterwards. I would actually see them in a crowd and I would head the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would avoid them at all costs. Like put my head down and pretend I didn't see them, and away I went. Because
that makes sense.
It's just that's the hardest part.
Yeah,
one of the hardest things is is ruining somebody else's day by having to talk about that. So
right.
So now when I have friends, because I've had a few friends become widows, I just go up and give them a hug. Yeah. I don't.
Sometimes you don't need words, do you?
Just a big long hug. Yeah. And I thought, you know what? That just speaks volumes from. Yeah. No, they know my situation, and of course I know theirs. And that's sometimes all you need to do.
Well, and that's great advice for somebody who who you are nervous to see because they've lost somebody, or vice versa. Yeah. It's a hug means that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I mean, that would probably be where I would want part of my story to resonate with people, with ladies, and I guess men to some extent, is life does go on, and you cannot plan your future because it will change. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily change for the worse. Sometimes it surprises you and changes for the better, especially if you keep an open mind and sometimes just like let the river take you where it wants and see what happens downstream. It's like, okay, try that. Because the book has taught me, the writing of the book has taught me that as well, is that, sometimes your fears hold you back from trying new things. And once you do it, you look back and say, oh my gosh, are you serious? You were really worried about that? Right? Like, my comfort zone, I used to be very uncomfortable being outside of my little closed comfort zone. And now I don't even know when I'm outside. Sometimes it's like, oh, maybe I should be really trying.
Well, that's perfect, like, because I agree with you. It's so much of that fear, and you spoke about it at the beginning, was fear of the judgment from other people. And I'm like, you teach belly dancing. Like,
I know.
how can you worry about judgment from other people? Like,
I know.
I'm exposed when I did that belly dancing with you. I pulled
Yeah.
my shirt up because I'm like, if I'm getting into this, I've got to expose my belly. And most women, that is a part of their body that is they're
Yeah.
most vulnerable about, which
Yeah.
I was too. And it's just like, no, let's do it. I'm all in. I'm all in. If I'm going to do this.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's probably, because I was a very shy person growing up. And I think that's one of the things that belly dancing has given me is the opportunity to have awkward scenarios or situations happen and have to deal with it and understand that, you can do it. Right. It creates a funny story. I mean, I could write a book on just belly dance performances and some of the things that people have asked me if I could do for them.
Well, I mean, how I want to kind of wrap it up, like you just kind of wrapped it up. What it shows to me of what you're doing is, I think it's way more than belly dancing.
Yes.
It's your life has brought you to this point.
Yes.
Which has in turn, it feels to me like this belly dancing has become a way for you to give back and to receive.
Yes.
We have a hard time receiving. So I hope that you take that in, how amazing you are.
Yes.
But you are really, it's not just about belly dancing.
No.
There's so much more. And I felt that in one class of yours. That it's a letting go, it's a releasing, it is a having fun, it is getting connected back to your body, which I have a very hard time with. But I felt that in the hour that we spent with you. So I just want to give you so much credit and to thank you for what you're doing, because you didn't have to share your story and you chose to. And I know that we all chose to share our stories in the hopes of helping one person. And that was the intention, and that's always the intention behind these books. And you've done that. You've done that. There's no doubt in my mind that you've done that, and you continue to do that by your sharing and by what you're doing. So, Elaine, I just want to thank you so much for trusting the process and for really sharing a part of your story. And it is a part, and you've got many more beautiful moments ahead. And I love that you found love a second time.
Yes.
I think it's
not where I was looking.
No. Well, and we never know what's going to happen, do we? So, but I love what you're doing. I think you are making the world a better place. That seems to be the only women that come into my world are ones that are making a difference, and you are one of them. So I appreciate you very much, and we want to make sure that everybody gets a copy of Beautiful Chaos and Embracing the Unexpected. And thank you for being a part of it.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. And we will see all of you again soon. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.